the motion be agreed to? Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In spite of the strenuous efforts of the Honourable Maurice Williamson to shrug off the national government of the 1990s responsibility for the deregulation that led to the systemic failure, sir, we on the opposition benches, we are supporting this bill because we acknowledge that the government is attempting to tackle the problem of leaky homes. But, sir, in expressing support at the second reading, we feel it's necessary to be very clear about the limits of this package and a number of concerns that we have about unresolved issues relating to this bill. 3 concerns. First, there are many affected homeowners who will be excluded from this package, who will not benefit from the provisions of this bill. Second, there are many unresolved questions about the way the bill's provisions will be implemented. And thirdly, sir, the government's failure to address the industry's chronic skills deficit and looming labour shortages threatens to derail the very intent and potential benefits of this initiative. First, sir, let me say that we at Select Committee we heard from many people who came to us saying that they would not be able to benefit from the package, and I want to just comment on some of those. It's clear that many affected owners of leaky homes will make the judgment that they can get more through court action. And it's probably true, sir, that it will be claims of relatively low value where the cost of the legal action is proportionately higher. They are the ones, sir, who may be the first to get in line to take advantage of this package. There are many people who will now be living in or owning homes that are not weathertight, who won't know within the 5-year period, and that will also be a significant number. Even more, sir, the number of people whose homes are more than 10 years old, and they will be excluded by the 10-year time frame. Perhaps even more worthy of consideration are people who simply won't be able to afford the 50% that this bill requires them to stump up with. These are the people who need, in fact, who are most deserving of support, and yet they are excluded from this. They are the most vulnerable and the most disadvantaged by this problem, and yet because of the 50% rule they are potentially going to be excluded. There's another group, sir, who will be excluded, and that's owners of dwellings in multi-dwelling complexes, apartment complexes and so on. These people amount to about 25% of the total number of dwellings affected by the weather tightness problem. About 5,500 dwellings who are affected by the leaky homes problem, and they won't be able to, in all likelihood, get any benefit from this bill, and there are a number of reasons, sir. First is that the banks simply won't lend money to body corporates because they are unable to secure the collectively owned property under a mortgage. But under the Unit Titles Act, a body corporate would be required to get 75% of the owners committed to an action to receive financial assistance under this package. I know that it was 100, but many body corporate owners came and told us at Select Committee that they will simply be unable to get the agreement of 75%. So right there we've got 25%, or I think it's 24% of owners who are affected by this problem effectively excluded from the benefits of this bill. I think that means, sir, that in fact it's going to be a relatively small number of people who are going to be getting the benefits of this bill. We have a number of questions, sir, many of which we raised at the first reading about this bill that haven't been adequately answered or addressed during the Select Committee hearings. The first and probably the most fundamental is that this bill indemnifies the Crown and effectively indemnifies the assessors from the Department of Building and Housing, who will be the ones who go in to assess the cost of the repair job. The DBH officials themselves advised against this, and that's quoted in the regulatory impact statement. If the assessors make mistakes, the homeowners will have no comeback. They will have no redress against that. The Crown is indemnified. I didn't hear any argument from officials during the Select Committee process, sir, that satisfied me that there was a good reason that the Crown should not be required, like all other parties in this process, to stand by the quality of their work. That question remains unanswered. There are a number of pitfalls that homeowners could face. It's not uncommon for a leaky repair job to get underway and then to find out a third or half the way through the job that when the cladding comes off, that actually the damage to the internals and the structure of the house is much worse than previously thought. And in that case, and we were reassured at Select Committee that it will be possible for a kind of a reassessment and a renegotiation of the agreed repair cost. That's fine, but what will that mean for homeowners who have already mortgaged themselves up to the eyeballs to meet the initial 50% cost? What happens then if they simply cannot take on any more debt? Will they be left to default on the contract? I think a lot more clarity is needed around situations where the repair jobs go pear-shaped. Under this bill, as we've heard, the DBH assessors are indemnified, but the architects and the builders are not. They are much more exposed than the Crown, and if things go wrong in the repair jobs, then it's the architects and designers and builders who will get it in the neck. And there are real concerns, sir, that because of that question, because of the increased liability, the increased vulnerability that they face, that it's quite possible that architects and designers, particularly in the kind of labour market that we're going into, that they will not be lining up to do this remedial work. Sir, the other thing we would like to say at this point also is that the bill doesn't differentiate between genuine homeowners who've been affected by the situation and people who are speculating. And we raised this at the first reading, and I don't think there was a satisfactory answer from the Minister. It'll be quite possible for property speculators to be buying up affected properties at bargain basement prices, getting the full benefit of this financial assistance package at the expense of the taxpayer, and then flicking those properties on for a significant profit, and it would have been quite simple to solve that problem in the drafting, sir. The third issue we have is less about the detail of this bill and more about the fact that this government's failure of leadership to address the entrenched problems in the building and construction industry could see a perfect storm developing in the coming months that will completely overwhelm the intent of this bill to actually make a meaningful contribution to those homeowners affected by the Weathertight problem. The building industry is in crisis. Building consents are running at less than 50% of their peak. We face a severely depleted workforce. The government, until actually today, the government's done nothing. In fact, it did worse. It slashed skills training in the industry, and we've seen large numbers of skilled tradespeople heading across the Tasman. Thousands of building apprentices have been laid off. We're looking at an acute shortage of skilled labour in the building and construction industry. There are some estimates that when the leaky home repairs and the Christchurch rebuilding get underway, we will have something like 25% of the skilled workforce that this country needs, sir. Now, if that happens, if we have an acute labour shortage and the loosening of building regulations that we're seeing in the Building Amendment Act, this bill will be completely overwhelmed and won't achieve its objectives.
Time has expired. Chris.